was the summer of 2014, and for my son's bar mitzvah present, just like many Jewish parents, we wanted him to bond with the Holy Land. Oh, it worked perhaps too well. My husband had stayed back at the hotel, and our friends, my son and I, had just stopped in a pharmacy.
Run to the bomb shelter, sweetie. Please hurry. I didn't hear the sirens at first, but the Israelis did. They're used to hearing these things. We ran to the back of the storeroom. It was a 12-foot by 24-foot windowless bomb shelter. My heart's pounding. Boom! Boom! I hear it and feel the percussion of the exploding bombs. I'm trying not to get sick. I look at my 13-year-old son and I think I'll never forgive myself if something happens to him.
That's an excerpt from a speech I gave to the Orange County Jewish Bar Association. It was the first, but not the last time we had to run to a bomb shelter. Our adventure and my transformation is also the subject of my book, Blasted from Complacency, A Journey from Terror to Transformation in Israel. There is no chapter in a parenting book on what to do when a war starts and you're on a family vacation. Think touring extraordinary and sacred sites mixed with cowering in bomb shelters. I'm still trying to get over the Jewish guilt of taking my son to war for his bar mitzvah present. The impact of being human targets helped me understand the plight of Israelis living like this, and it also made me want to work on peace. How Israel is often described on the news is not what I'd seen with my own eyes. And I felt Palestinian parents also preferred their children playing safely in their backyards. The missiles exploded just near enough to blow apart my world as I knew it, forever changing me. And you'd never recognize my life today with what it was like then. I believe I found my life's purpose. Welcome, everyone. My name is Penny S.T., and I'm the host of Peace with Penny. I'm looking forward to our first interview with a member of Combatants for Peace, an organization founded by former fighters on both sides who today work on peace nonviolently. This will be a two-part series. Today will be the first interview with Elie Avidor, an Israeli who fought with the Israeli Defense Forces, and next Tuesday will be the final and second discussion with Ahmed Helou, a former member of Hamas. Both today work as peace activists. Elie Avidor's connection to the land of Israel through his personal and family history is part of the fabric of building the nation of Israel. From his grandfather's arrival in 1905 from Russia, his grandmother being the first doctor in the Jezreel Valley, to his father's escape from Nazi Germany to the Jewish homeland, and his mother being born in Israel, his strong foundation in the land of milk and honey is deep, and we'll let him tell us the specifics shortly. Elie himself was an officer in the Israeli army and was seriously wounded during the Yom Kippur War in 1973. Yet today he is against what many call the occupation, and he spends his time working with Combatants for Peace. We're sure you'll find his story fascinating and a lesson in introspection and change. So, without any further delay, welcome, Elie.
Thank you, Penny. Thanks for having me on your show.
I'm really excited to have you here today. Now, I know you're married and have two kids, but for now, let's go back. Elie, your personal and family history reads like one of those great books, Building the Nation of Israel. Can you please tell us about your grandfather and his help to build the nation when he arrived?
Yeah, he was born in 140 years ago in 1884 in Russia. And he was born into a merchant's family, but he was a Zionist. Based on the history of the Jews in Russia, he decided that they have to go back to Palestine and establish the Jewish land, Jewish nation. And he took his part of the inheritance. And at 1905, he came and toured Israel. He toured Israel and he went south, north, and he fell in love with the Israel Valley, which was at that time all swamps And so he helped Khankin. Khankin was the person that was managing buying lands from the Palestinian Arab owners that in fact they lived in Lebanon, Lebanese. And they went up to Lebanon, to Beirut, and bought land. He bought some 250 acres of land for himself and for his family. He went back. I mean, this is after his tour. In fact, he went back to learn agriculture in Germany, in Heidelberg, and that's where he met my grandmother. She studied to be a doctor, a physician.
Yes, yes. Your grandmother was one of the first doctors in the Jezreel Valley, and being a woman, especially in those days in a patriarchal society, and achieving such a high position that's really impressive. Can you tell us a little bit more about her?
Yeah, so she was born in Germany. She was ready to move with him into a swamp area. I guess he promised her a castle. So, so he took an architect named Alexander Braveld, a German architect that designed big buildings, the Technion, one of them in Haifa. And he designed a farmhouse for him, which was very special, very big, and with a big yard, big, large building, just like a European farmhouse. And they settled there. And she was a doctor, and it was a swamp. And she helped. There was a village. In fact, there was an Arab village by her called Salem, and she used to care for the Arab farmers there in Salem already then.
Wow. You had, I think, a picture of the house.
I can show you the picture.
Oh, now you can see it.
You see it?
Here we go. Yeah. So what do you want to say anything about it?
This is the house. This is my mother, the small girl, and her brother. He was 10 years older than her. No, in fact, he was born in 06, I think. In 06, yeah, he was 10 years older. And that's them there. They lived in this big house. Now the house is restored. It's still there. The house is still there, and it's very nice. It's a beautiful house. At the back, there's a big yard for horses, and it's completely different from any building in the area.
Well, it's quite huge. You know, you wouldn't expect to see such a huge house like that.
Here is the mother's family. She's on the right. The mother is on the right. In Germany, studying in Heidelberg, and
Wow.
and that's the father, Eliyahu. I'm named after him.
The gentleman over there, yeah. Wow.
That's him.
And is this?
Do we look alike? Do we look alike? I was
somewhat. Is this in a book of some type, or where?
This is in fact in a newspaper. You can see it on the web.
Wow, that's really cool.
Here's the mother. Here's the mother, Miriam.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so wonderful that you have those pictures.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess this was this is part of the history of the Jews coming to Israel, as you mentioned, and so some people took interest in that and really researched it and published that.
Oh, so you didn't provide them the pictures? They researched it and found
No,
these?
they researched it, and this is family. This is family pictures.
Okay.
So they got it from the family, from my cousins.
Okay.
Everybody contributed the picture.
That's really, really nice. Is there a way to see it translated?
I'll translate it for you.
Because I'm sure it has some very interesting stories associated with it. But if I could now, if you could stop sharing the screen and we'll go back
Here we go.
to wonderful. So, and then your father escaped Nazi Germany and was an officer who fought in the Jewish Brigade with the British Army. Can you share any stories that he told you about that time?
Yeah, my father, he was part, the whole family was very Zionist, the kids. He had 7 brothers. One, in fact, already died in Germany, Hermann, and the 6 others already from 1928, one by one, they started moving to Israel. My father came to Israel in 1936 when the Nazis, I mean, they were starting to be very, very strong and the influence on the Jews there. So they knew to leave. They took their parents and they moved to a kibbutz, Givat Brenner, to a kibbutz in Israel. My father was, in fact, his internship was in Germany. He was a carpenter. But coming to Israel very soon, he joined the British police. He was a police, I think, a policeman, something like that in Jerusalem. And then he joined the British Brigade. Jews really fought very hard to join the British armies. So eventually the Britain allowed them to join the World War II, the fight against Nazi Germany, and they created the Jewish Brigade. My mother, in fact, too, she joined the ATS. It was called the Auxiliary Territorial Services, and she served in Egypt with other Israeli women. In fact, and my father, he went to Europe, and they fought the Germans in Italy. In fact, he was fighting the Germans, and there's a small story, he fought over the Po River, River Po, and in fact, there was a small story how there was a small fight with the Germans, and they captured some Germans, so it made the news already then to the papers in Israel.
You yourself also fought in the Israeli army. Can you tell us about that was in the Yom Kippur War in 1973. Can you tell us about your experience?
Yeah, in fact, I already finished my actual service of 3 years. I was 1 year after that in the reserve, but I wasn't assigned a unit. So I joined my friends that I was doing my active service and the Golani Brigade, and they were fighting in the Golan Heights. And in the last days, 2 days before the end of the war, the last battle was capturing back the Hermon mountain after it was captured in a surprise attack by the Syrians. And we, after first attempt, it was a failure. We waited to the end, just to the last days, and we climbed the mountain. We climbed it by night, and there the Syrians were preparing for us for 2 weeks. They were just waiting. And it was a very, very bloody battle. Like about 66 Israeli soldiers were killed.
Right.
I was in a front line, and out of the 8 people of us, six were killed.
Oh my goodness.
And I was wounded, and I spent some 3 months in the hospital afterwards.
Oh my goodness.
So it was serious stuff.
Now, you and your family have had quite an illustrious military background, and looking back, how did you feel about that? I mean, your family history is like learning about it is like reading a history book of Israel. It's very interesting.
It's true, because my father, he stayed with the army. He was like a very high officer, almost like 2 ranks of the chief of staff. And afterwards, he was a deputy military attaché in Washington, D.C. So as a kid, all what we knew and all what we learned in school was Israel was on its own, had to take care of itself, surrounded by the Arab countries, being attacked again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
And we all heard about stories of heroes, soldiers being heroes, saving the life of others, and leading people into war zones and not being afraid, and then getting medals, the Israel medal or this medal or that medal. They are Israeli heroes, considered Israeli heroes, and that's what we learned in school. That's what we heard.
Yeah.
And what we heard was that the Arabs were offered a solution for dividing the country and did not accept, and in fact attacked, wanted to destroy Israel, not allow it to be created as a state. That's what we learned.
Yeah.
And of course, not of course, but most of us really wanted to join the army and do a good service as much as we could. And I wanted to be a fighter, so I was a fighter, and most of my friends were.
Yeah.
So this was the general feeling. Let alone that Yom Kippur was really a survival war. There's no question that Yom Kippur was a survival war. But what led to it is another story.
Okay. Did you? that makes me want to ask. Did you want to talk about that at all, or just a little? Just a little recap?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's the 67 6 Days War, the big war, big victory, miracle, whatever you want to call it. Israel considered it a miracle, and the occupation. What started from Israel being destroyed by Arab countries. Everybody was worrying. 2 weeks that everybody was really worrying, and feeling that again we're on our own. But then came this amazing finish of occupation of the West Bank, of the Sinai, of the Golan Heights. It was kind of unreal.
Yeah.
And this staying with all this land created the major problem to Israel.
Right.
And Israel didn't know how to solve it, in such a way to bring that this victory will become a way to reach peace in the area. Israel did not know, failed to use this advantage to come to a complete solution with the Arab countries. And the result was 73. Israel, where they were too proud, they said there's nobody to talk to. And okay, so they got it the other way. The Arabs showed them something, that there is somebody to talk to. And they managed, when they were forced to talk to, they realized they have no choice. And the Americans forced them to sit and talk and make agreements, and they gave up the Sinai, and but the thing was not complete. We are left with the West Bank and the Golan Heights. We are left with the problem.
Yes. So eventually you left Israel for 20 years. Can you say why you left?
I guess I was an adventurer, We live in a small country, a small island, and we really want to see the world and test the world and experience the world. So I went and I studied in Scotland, and then I wanted to go to the US to work, and I worked, but I always felt connection, very, very strong connection. Mentally, it was very hard, because as an Israeli, it was hard for me to feel at home. There was no way for me to feel at home in the US, and I lived in Canada as well. And so twice I came back to Israel, and then again to America. And eventually I felt that with my family, we want to settle in Israel and be here.
Yeah.
Be here and go back to the story of my grandfather and my father and my parents. And I felt that it's important. I did got my experiences abroad, and I really felt that I want to be part of the land and contribute to its being an Israel that I would like it to be.
Yeah. Given your background, people might not have predicted that you'd end up working on peace with Palestinians. Can you tell us why you got involved with well, I'll call it CFP, Combatants for Peace?
Basically, what happened was that we heard about this ceremony. There's a ceremony of the Memorial Day in Israel. It's one
Right.
day before the Independence Day. We have the Memorial Day for all the family, all the soldiers that fell in the different wars in Israel.
Right.
So Combatant for Peace, together with the Circle of Bereaved Families, did something very amazing, that they decided that they are going to join forces with the enemy, supposedly enemy, and commemorate this Memorial Day for fallen people of the conflict. Never mind Israel, both Israelis and Palestinians. And they started 17 years ago, I think, with 70 people in the event. And 2 years ago, it was like 9,000 people in the major park, in the main park, in the heart of Tel Aviv. And so I joined like 7 years ago. I went and attended this ceremony, and you just stand there and you just cry for an hour and a half. You realize the pain, you realize sharing the pain, you realize humanizing the enemy. And I did it once, and after the second time, after the second year, I just decided, okay, Elie Avidor, what are you doing now? When your son will ask you, what did you do? So I really felt I really need to do something, and I joined Combatants for Peace, and I've been working with them and putting lots of energy and into working with Palestinians and trying to solve this conflict.
Yeah, I think this year there were 280,000, something like that, something
Right.
incredible, incredible.
Last 2 years, because of the corona, we
Yeah.
went on the internet and it was streamed. So not only 250,000 people viewed
280.
Not only this big number, but not less important is that some 20,000 joined on the Arab channel, on the Arabic channel. So it could be Arabs from all over all over the Middle East and Palestinians. And this is bringing the message to them. This is the important, just as important, very important for us.
Yeah, it's all over the world, and I have it, I attended and I have it recorded, and if anyone wants to see it, they can go to my website, pennyst.com, and under podcasts, I believe it was April 14th was the date, and you can see it and hear what Ellie's talking about. It's well worth your time. So as you were growing up, did you have strong feelings about how you felt Israel treated Palestinians?
I felt Israel was very righteous. After 67, I was 16 in the 6 Days War, and I joined the army. You're drafted at 18. In 69 I was drafted, and I felt that the Israelis are very righteous, and they think that they are the only ones, and there's nobody to talk to. This was the line. There's nobody to talk to the other side, and I really felt that it's going to hurt us. And that's, in fact, as I mentioned before, that's eventually what happened. And I felt that, and I mean, who you should talk to if not enemies? You talking to your friends is obvious.
Yeah.
You need to talk to your enemies to solve problems, and Israel didn't do it, and they still don't do it the right way.
So what are the attitudes of the Palestinians that you work with toward Israelis?
The Palestinians I'm working with in Combatants for Peace, I mean, they know Israelis, they know us. Right. So they know that some Israelis are interested in living with them as equal and as humans, in this area, regardless of the political solution. But I think that most of Palestinians, they don't know what the average Palestinian, all they know is the soldier that come and bang their door open at 2 o'clock in the morning looking for someone, or the settler that harasses them on the road, or doesn't let them pick olives in the olive picking season. So that's the Israelis they know, and they are afraid of them, and so there's no good feeling from the Palestinians toward Israelis.
Is it dangerous for the Palestinians you work with to meet with you because of the sentiment in their community against non-normalization?
It depends on the times. It really depends on the times. When things happen in the area, that many things have been quite bad, the Palestinians felt the situation was becoming worse, mainly with Trump, with the century peace plan and moving the embassy to Jerusalem. There was a huge pressure on our members in CFP, Palestinian members, that I mean, they were criticized to no end. I mean, what are you dealing with the Israelis? See what Israel is doing to us with Trump, you know? You have no reason to talk to Israelis. It's all a joke. They supposedly they want to make peace with you. Here, well, look at their government, and they were pressed very badly. And I'm sure that you will hear from Ahmed Helou about this.
Yeah.
And let alone during the war now, the last war and the previous war in Gaza, when there's bombing, you can imagine what kind of pressure is being put, mental pressure, through Facebook and other media on our members. So it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
So what was the reaction of your family and friends to the fact that you work with Palestinians on peace?
For my family, no question, there's complete support. There's complete support. They believe in it. They think I'm doing good. That's what should be done. They know some of my my friends, colleagues, the Palestinians. They came, they visited. Ahmed Helou, in fact, stayed in my house. And
oh, really?
Oh yeah, he came and stayed in the house. We did the presentation, and then afterwards he came and stayed in the house. So my family saw him. There's complete support, and same among most of my friends. My friends, in fact, kind of jealous of me that I'm doing it, and they wish they did it, but I guess they can't make themselves get up and do it. You know, you really have to believe in it and give time to it and feel that it's a top priority in your life and that it makes a difference. On the other hand, there are some people, even from within my family, that say it's very nice that you have all these Palestinian friends. So you have 100 friends, you have 100 people believe in peace. Where are all the thousands? Why don't all the thousands join them? And that's where they don't understand the situation of Palestinians, how bad the situation is. And it's not simple to join a peace movement among the Palestinians, given the pressure that Israel puts on them. It's a disaster.
Yeah, I can understand the reaction. Some people are very confused by my dedication the last 6 years of, why, you're here, they're there, and it's nice, but why do you work 7 days a week, 20-hour days for this? And the only thing I could say is it absolutely feels right, and that it feels like my purpose. Other than having my son, it just seems like it was meant to be. And I absolutely love the people like yourself that I meet who dedicate themselves to this work. So, but I can understand what you're saying as, some people are very confused by that. It's a little bit more direct, or a lot more direct when you're there, obviously, but being over here, it's I confuse a lot of people, sometimes myself. So, before we go further with about CFP, I wanted to show this in trailer of the incredible movie. They made the film Disturbing the Peace, which tells the story of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and inspires hope in the possibility for change by featuring founding members of CFP and their transformation from active participants in the cycle of violence to non-violent activists. So I will share my screen.
I was 4 years old when we were attacked on Yom Kippur. I remember us running to the shelter in Tel Aviv. It's very concrete for a child. They want to kill us. And I really didn't understand, why do they hate us so much?
ناصر أخوي كان أصغر مني، لو كان تقريبا عمره 14 سنة. الجيش اللي حكوا له أطلقوا عليه رصاصة. أنا ما بعرفش كيف في هذيك اللحظة قدرت أتحمل الموقف.
كان عندي حلم إني أكون مقاتل في صفوف الثورة الفلسطينية يعني، وأكون جزء من الكفاح المسلح ضد الاحتلال. كنت مستعد إنه أموت في سبيل هاي الأفكار.
I was admitted into the most prestigious unit in the Israeli army. I was extremely proud. I knew my father was proud.
صرت أفكر كتير إيش أنا دوري في الحياة هنا، فاخترت إني أعمل عملية استشهادية. זה מקומם, זה פשוט מרגיש טרור. ככה מרגיש טרור בעיניי.
מישהו התקשר ואמר שיש פלסטינים שמוכנים להיפגש איתנו.
كنت كثير خايف إنه قد يكون في مصيدة يعني هون.
We find that we actually have something in common. That willingness to kill people you don't know.
عندهم قوة جميل مش طبيعي. بده يجي كم واحد من المقاتلين من أجل السلام رفضوا الخدمة يغيروها.
إذا أنت قريتي عن نيلسون مانديلا، شخص لحاله غير دولة وكان كل الدين وغير كل النظام، وأنت بتعرفي إنه شخص لحاله، كل شخص لحاله كيف قدر يسوي هيك؟ كيف قدر يسوي؟
אנחנו מזמינים את כוחות הביטחון לפשוט את המדים ולהצטרף אלינו.
أنا بفقدش الأمل في فكرة إن السلام، إنه ما في طريق ثاني غير السلام.
I have to say, when I watched it, it was incredible. It's gut-wrenching. You can't, I mean, personally, I there are times I couldn't, I had to look away. But it really captures, you know, the difficulties and the horror that, well, you know, war is hell, as they say, and it's ugly. Anyway, so CFP believes in nonviolence, and could you talk a little bit about what their goals and mission is?
Yeah. Basically, CFP believes in equality, and it's against the occupation. There can be no equality when there's occupation, and that we're all humans, and we believe in sharing our destiny in this area. We don't talk about political solutions. People have different ideas. Ahmed Helou might have a different idea than I have, but this is not the issue. We are a grassroots operation. We work person to person, humanizing the other side, and we do it equally. And so as an organization, we have it's everything is equal from both sides. We have a CEO, Palestinian CEO, Israeli CEO, a financial officer, Israeli and Palestinian. All the decisions are made on an equal basis, whether it's media, whether it's talking to diplomats, education, everything has to be agreed on between the two sides. And we really believe in resisting the occupation in a non-violent way, and that's what we're working with together.
What kinds of activities, besides the joint memorial, do you take part in or have for your members?
The idea is to get people to know us. First, obviously, the members.
Excuse me.
And bless you. And beyond, not only the members, the general. So it's expanding circles. We want to expand the circle of people that hear us and hear from us. So we do not, now the corona is kind of hurting us, but we did house meetings both in Palestine and in Israel, and we tell the people that come to listen to us about the personal transition, our personal stories, because we all started with being part of this circle of violence on both sides, and we both realized, both sides, members from both sides realized that this is not the way, and this is an amazing transition. And so we're trying to tell the people that listen to us about the transition we went through, and hopefully make them believe that they can go through this similar transition, join us and go through similar transition in resisting the occupation.
Have you attended any of the parlor meetings or educational tours?
Yeah, so the education was one of them. Yeah, in fact, I'm serving as the coordinator for the central group. We have geographical groups in the north, in the south, in Jerusalem, and in the center, and I'm coordinating the center group. And we have groups on the other side, and we go to them, to the villages. They can't come to us. And we sit in a house, the local coordinator invite us. We sit with the family, or we sit there is usually family, friends, cousins, and some 20 people, and we tell them the story. Sometimes we show them the film, and we tell them about what we went through and how come we joined the movement.
And have you been on any of the, what they call the freedom marches? If you could describe what that is.
The Freedom March we do in Area C in Palestine, very close to Jerusalem, and along the main road there, the road that goes between Jerusalem, one of the largest settler communities of Gush Etzion, and we do it with Palestinians and Israelis, and walking around for declaring that we are together. We're ready to resist any push, any aggression from settlers, from the army, from the police that many times come and try to stop us. But we are there in hundreds of people, and sometimes we bring people, politicians, artists or singers, stand on a stage and sing some songs, and basically be together and meet people and be active and showing our resistance. Some politicians sometimes come and talk to expose ourselves both to the traffic, settler traffic, or just any traffic or Palestinian traffic that goes on the road. So we've done that near Jerusalem. We did it in Jericho, and we're still doing these things. Last one was like half a year ago, and it wasn't simple. I mean, the army tried to stop us, and some 4 Israelis and 4 Palestinians were detained by the police, by the Israeli police, and we sat by the police station until all of them were released on bail.
Yeah.
So this was an act of nonviolent resistance. I mean, tear gas was shot, and Yeah. And stun grenades was thrown at us.
Boy,
So
it must be very scary.
Yeah, it is scary. It's not very pleasant, but we're ready to stand against it. We're ready to take it. We're ready to take it when we know it might happen. And this is kind of on the transition I'm talking about, because as a nonviolent organization, we all see to it and tell the people that join us that they should find a place. Every person should find a place of resistance. To what extent the person joins the front of the resistance. Are you going to stand in front of the policeman or the soldier and argue with them and be exposed to maybe to the tear gas? Or are you going to stand away? You can stand away and, don't fear or not having to breathe the tear gas. And when people see these things, sometimes they see that and they feel, I should be with them. And then they join the front line. And that's a transition that half a year earlier, that person would have never thought they'll ever do that.
Yeah.
And when they see what is happening, when the people are trying to do nonviolent resistance and they are there and the response of the police or the army, then they're ready to join when they see the evil being done in front of their eyes. People are joining and people are going through this transition, and then they tell it to their friends. So this is the way we do it, and this is the grassroots operation that we hope that will come to thousands of people.
So soon on July 12th, you're going to have the second annual Nakba Remembrance Ceremony. Can you talk about what that is and why that's important?
Yeah, lately we realized that in the last years, we realized that we can't talk about solving the occupation and it's not only the occupation. We're talking about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And the conflict didn't start in '67 with the occupation. The conflict started way, way earlier. Maybe when my grandfather came from Russia, and let alone when the Nakba occurred in the Nakba, and just as much the Independence Day or independence of Israel in '48, where I think 600,000 Palestinians left for this reason or another, were pushed away from Palestine to the Arab countries around, and spread outside. And now some of them live in Gaza, some of them live in the occupied areas, and some of them in Lebanon, or some of them even had to leave villages within Israel. Though they stayed in Israel, they can't go back to the villages where they started from, because their villages were erased, razed, just for that reason, not to go back to them.
Just for some people, I wanted to explain, not everyone will know that when Israel was established, what Israelis call Independence Day, the Palestinians call the Nakba, which means catastrophe. So that kind of lays the map for perspectives on the same time period. Do you speak Arabic? You spend a lot of time with Palestinians, but do you speak Arabic?
No, I don't speak Arabic, but I'm working on it. I'm studying now Arabic with a group of friends and with a teacher from Hebron. And yeah, I'm working. Hopefully soon enough, I'll be able to converse with my Palestinian friends in Arabic.
Yeah, that's, obviously communicating with people, if you don't speak the same language, is difficult, if not impossible. And so much of being able to cooperate and work together is when you can at least speak the same language. How do you deal with that? Do you have interpreters at your events, or?
Penny, when my friend Muin, the shepherd, gets up at 6:30 in the morning He knows that at 4 o'clock I woke up, 5 o'clock I got into the car, 6:30 I'm in North Jordan Valley. And he doesn't need me to talk to him at all. He know it's action. It's my action that prove my belief in working with him, you know? So it's beyond words. It's beyond words. It's my action. It's my action of helping him getting out of jail. That he was harassed by an Israeli settler, and he took the settler's phone and threw it away. It was enough for the policeman to detain him. I was there to take him out of jail, to give him the money for the bail. I didn't need to talk to Arabic to him. But today there's the technology, you can do Google Translate. You can do anything. It's really, you know, it's spending the time together, which make us amazing friends and fighting together for the same goal.
How did the recent violence impact your life?
In Gaza?
Yeah, well, you know, it's a
All
mess
over,
right
all
now.
over.
Yeah.
It's a really hard time, very, very hard time. Mainly with the transition of the Israeli government. What happens, you know, we had a prime minister that was dealing with his own problems, and they didn't care, and they thought that the more they push the Palestinians, maybe they'll get more votes from the right wing. So there's the Sheikh Jarrah, where Israelis, Jews are trying to get into an Arab neighborhood in East Jerusalem. There's the Nablus Gate, there's Al-Aqsa, where the Israeli police doesn't let the Palestinians go and pray, or the Palestinian in East Jerusalem sit by the Nablus Gate, where they sit throughout the Ramadan. They didn't let them sit there. And then there's Gaza, the Gaza problem, and all those together really create lots of pressure. And then, let alone, we hear now about the settlement of Eviatar, that the right wing, the settlers, they just decided to stick a finger to the eye of the government, and they have money, they have lots of support from the government, from groups in the US, different groups that support them, that believe that support their belief that it's their land, the Holy Land, the Promised Land. And here they go and take Arab Palestinian land and erect a small community of 50 houses with the road and with the electricity. This thing doesn't happen just from nowhere. This is all planned, supported by the bureaucracy. And that's what the Palestinians see on the other side. You know, we have friends in Beita, just opposite Eviatar, this new settlement, and we went there and we demonstrated against this new settlement in Eviatar. So it was very, very tough time the last 3 months, and people were killed. Palestinians were killed throughout this demonstration. Like 6 Palestinians were killed. Some of them in the village that we've been demonstrating with. So they are very serious. The resistance in there, and we are there to help them.
So, how old are your kids?
20, 23, and 20.
So, are they going into or are already in the military, or?
They did their share. They did their share. Now they're civilians trying to find their future.
How did you feel about, what do you feel about that? Feeling the way you do now about nonviolence and all that?
See, this is kind of a very sensitive topic. The idea of serving in the army. We try that our members cannot serve in the occupied territories, but to be a conscientious objector, that's another matter. Some of the people that you saw in the movie were conscientious objectors. They said that's how it started. That's how the organization started, with these members that started the CFP sending a letter to the government, to the prime minister, saying, we are not going to serve anymore. Okay, But so there are some members of CFP that were conscientious objectors, and some of them went to jail and spent good months in jail until the army realized they can't deal with them and they let them go. Others don't, and myself too, I don't believe in, I think we still need an army. And there's no reason that one person will not be in the army while the others will go in the front and, you know, and be ready to die, to give their life to the country, though we know that the country is going not in the right track, but we're not living in a peaceful world or peaceful region.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's an angel here. So I think we need an army, but as I'm saying, it's a very sensitive question.
Yeah.
And but like with the political solutions for the conflict, we have different ideas for different members, and we accept everybody as long as they accept non-violent resistance to the occupation and working with our partners, with the Palestinian partners, to get to this goal.
Like in the film, do any of your kids belong to CFP and come with you?
No, my kids did not come with me. And going back, in fact, to your question regarding how did I feel, I think that many, beyond those maybe that try to persuade their kids not to go to not to serve, and the average Israeli person does not try not to deal with, not to put their hands into the business of what the kids are doing in the army, because you never want to blame yourself. If something happened, if you directed the kid to be in one or that unit and something happened to them, you don't want to be there. So it's really the kids deciding what they want, and they decide on their destiny within that framework of the army.
Yeah, it's like everything else in Israel, it's complicated. There's nothing that's easy there. So how COVID really impacted your work? Are you beginning to be able to meet in person now, or?
Not yet. It really impacted the parallel meeting that we talked about before. But on the other hand, we did other things. We were very strong. We work on the media, and we work on legal things, and we work with diplomats. So we really, you know, we're trying to spread the word to across the world, and work, for instance, with diplomats, trying to bring them to the field, trying to bring them to the occupied areas, trying to show them the things that are happening. And in fact, today we're trying to say show the situation of apartheid that is occurring, that how Israel is managing the occupied territories, where there are two different systems of laws upon the Palestinian and upon the Israelis. So for us, this is an apartheid. All the settlement movement, dislocating Palestinians from their places, we're calling this war crimes. We are trying to let soldiers know that they are involved with war crimes. We're writing to politicians that they're involved, they are getting into a situation that they'll be called for it by the international law community, legal community. So we are putting a big advertisement with we are cooperating with other community, other NGO, peace organization to show, to expose the Israeli population and the diplomats for what is happening and the seriousness of that. We just did a campaign of putting stickers on Israeli products that are being produced in the West Bank, that the manufacturers print on that it's being produced in Israel, and this is against the law in Israel. And this is just to educate the population that to know when they are buying something that this product is being produced in the West Bank. So this is kind of another act that we've been doing in order to spread the word of occupation, the meaning of occupation.
Okay. I am curious about that because, you know, I'm not necessarily familiar with all the laws. So can you explain a little bit more about that? But first I should say that this really is a non-political video podcast, and I purposefully have it that way because I'm interested in the people, and also because I'm American, and it's not my place to say what's right or wrong, but just to let people know that I'm not taking a position. Obviously, you have taken a position, and I feel that obviously you're right, but I just feel that I should say that. But can you explain about something being made in the West Bank, what the law is?
There's a law about just like, you know, manufacturer has to write what the kind of materials that they put in the food,
right?
You know, the same way, the same thing has to be printed. Where was this thing produced? Doesn't
Right.
matter if it's sandals or computer or a jam.
Right.
And Israel did not annex the West Bank. So
Right.
everything that is being produced in the West Bank, and there's lots of products, agriculture products, not only agriculture products. SodaStream was produced in Israel, in the West Bank, and they were almost, and they knew that they are in trouble in Europe and in the US because of that, and they moved the manufacturing plant from the West Bank back to Israel. SodaStream, the famous company, you know.
But looking at that like an American that I am, I still am not quite sure what is wrong with that. In my head, if they have jobs in the West Bank now and they're able to produce something, that why is that wrong? I'm still missing the point. Sorry.
We are considering Israel occupying. This is an occupied land. You cannot use it for your own benefits. You cannot use the natural resources. You cannot use the water. You cannot use the minerals. You're not allowed to, as I said, move people in or move the residents inside from place to place. When they want to build an industrial area, they take land from villages. You understand?
They're not
take land from villages.
So it's like Israel comes in and takes over. It's not the benefits. Are they not employing Palestinians?
It's irrelevant. They employ Palestinians. Yes, they employ Palestinians, but they took land from Palestinians to build that factory.
Okay,
you know,
that's
and I don't know, that these Palestinians are protected in legal laws, you know, employment laws, the way Israeli residents are protected in Israel.
Okay.
Because it's two different systems. So we need to understand, and Israelis don't understand that. They don't understand that, and we need to let.
You mean I'm not the only one?
You're not the only. You're really not the only one.
Who doesn't know the rules, even though some Israelis don't understand over there either.
Yeah, because Israel does not. Israel plays games with words, and they say this is a disputable land. They will not agree to call it occupied, because if it's occupied, then there are rules. There's the Geneva rules, the Hague, you know, and the Rome Agreement. There are rules. You can't use this land. You can't take advantage of this land, which Israel does all the time. There's a creeping annexation, and we are seeing the creeping annexation all the time. And this is against international law. This is a war crime.
How do you feel about whether or not there's ever going to be peace there? Do you think there's a possibility, or is it so difficult now that it's too hard to imagine?
You know, it is very hard. It is very hard, but I work for the moment.
Mhm.
I know that now something bad is happening, and
Yeah.
I cannot let it happen. You know, I like to play racquetball on the beach. I cannot play racquetball on the beach when I know what is happening to Muin, the shepherd in the North Jordan Valley. I cannot enjoy my life, you know?
Yeah.
Israel, basically, I feel that Israel cannot be independent before, though it got independence in 48, before the Palestinian conflict was solved. And so I cannot bury my head in the sand. And I don't have the privilege of being pessimistic. I have to be optimistic. I'm working. I'm working on it. I see lots of good people that I can cooperate with, and we hope for the best.
This is my last question to you. If you were speaking to the people of the world, what would the message be that you'd want them to know about your work with CFP and what it will take to obtain peace?
My message is that we need help from anybody across the world to put the pressure on the Israeli government, on the Palestinian government, on every government. Put the pressure to make the two sides sit and talk, maybe with the help of third side, sit and talk until they come to a solution. Like we send letters in the US for citizens of the US to send letters to their Congress people. That's what I want. That they let them know. The Congress people will know what is happening. We give them the evidence. We tell them what is happening in the field, and I hope that they will help us in putting the pressure on their diplomats, on their politician, to put the pressure on our politician. And so there are many ways, in political ways, in sending arms, even sending arms to Israel. How the arms is being used, you know? Put some pressure on Israel about using the arm. How is the arms being used? That's a question too. It's not only financial, economics. We need to know what is happening. The people of the world should know what is happening with these arms.
Well, thank you so much, Elie, for your time and telling us about the great peace activities that you and others are working on with Combatants for Peace. Next Tuesday, November 9th at 11 a.m. Pacific time, once again, we will complete part 2 of this series with CFP, and we'll be interviewing Ahmed Helou, a former member of Hamas, who today also works on peace with CFP. His change in his attitude toward Israelis, we believe, will inspire you and give you hope that there definitely are people working on peace in Israel. Thanks to our Peace with Penny listeners today. And if you'd like to listen again or to any of our previous interviews, you can find them on my website at Penny, S-T-E-E, like my last name.com, under podcasts. And until next week, may you live in peace, shalom, and salam.
Bye, Penny.